Hello and welcome to another very special Eyeful Presentations multicast. Multi as we have both video versions and an audio podcast series available for download from our website. This video is part 1 of 2. In this multicast, Eyeful's Simon Morton offers some sage advice in advance of the financial event of the year, Sibos, with advice, new ideas and new approaches all designed to help improve your Sibos presenting experience.
Thank you once again for taking the time out of what undoubtedly are manic days before the Sibos kick-off. We know from experience of working with companies in the past that things get particularly frantic around this time of year, so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us for this short webinar. There are a couple of promises I can make. One is that we'll limit this to no more than 30 minutes based on the fact that we know you're very busy people. But also, probably more importantly, you'll walk away with something that will improve your whole Sibos presentation experience. The idea is that we're not just sort of showing off what we can do from our side, but also hopefully equipping you with a bunch of ideas, new ideas and different approaches that you can take for this year's Sibos. In the room, in the sort of virtual seminar room that we've created for you, you are sitting, virtually at least, next to the good and great of Sibos. There's some very impressive people that have decided to take the time out to join us today, so thank you very much again for taking the time and hopefully taking some bits and pieces away with you as part of this whole process. What I'll do is I'll very quickly introduce as to who we are and what we do and why we have the right to stand up and our sort of experience of it. Like I say, very quick introduction to Eyeful. We're 6 years old. We're 6 years old today. It's our sixth birthday, and so we've been party poppering and all sorts of stuff at this end. And over the last, I guess, probably 4 years or so, Sibos has been part of our sort of annual production schedule. We've always factored Sibos into our plans for the year, and we've been incredibly fortunate over the years to have worked repeatedly with a number of very impressive clients. They've been people like Vocalink, Citibank, SmartStream, and the National Bank of Greece. To name just a few, they have come to us for support around Sibos. The National Bank of Greece one certainly sticks in my mind because we had this peculiar situation where we were searching high and low for license-free Greek folk music, which, trust me, isn't particularly easy to get hold of, but for our clients it was important, so we went out and did it. That's probably quite a nice link to the fact that over the years, we've found ourselves working with clients in 23 countries, and in the last 12 months we've been responsible for producing over 18,000 PowerPoint slides and ridding those slides of bullet points, cliched clip art and other things that get in the way of a powerful and compelling presentation. So that's who we are. One thing that I guess connects our clients for Sibos with all of the other clients that we work with is the fact that there's this ongoing issue with presentations, and hopefully one of the reasons that you've joined us today is to understand how you can get more value and impact out of your presentation. Well, the easiest way to sort of probably describe it is what we call the presentation paradox, and we see this time and time again where companies will spend a huge amount of money very early on in the sales and marketing process to get their message right. They'll work and spend time on finding the right people, on marketing their products and services, on training their salespeople, on being able to share that information properly. And all of that sort of culminates in what will sort of be known as the sales PowerPoint or the sales presentation. It's such an important part of it. It's the culmination of a huge amount of investment and time and blood, sweat and tears, yet often, paradoxically, this presentation is the thing that's produced in-house with little or no sort of consideration for the rest of the investment. And there's no real reason for it other than I think possibly PowerPoint is so very easy to use that people feel that they can use it very easily, and they can create their own sort of versions of sales presentations on the assumption that they're that they're the right thing to do. Ultimately, they're not. And that's why we see so many death by PowerPoint news articles and blog posts, and just a general sort of furrowed brow whenever somebody double clicks on the PowerPoint icon these days. What we suggest you do, and this is probably the first of the many things that we'd like to share with you today with regard to best practice, is think about things differently when it comes to creating your presentations for Sibos this year. Typically, people will start off with design. They'll start worrying about the template that the PowerPoint slides sit on. They'll worry about sort of what fonts to be using. Will the artwork work on the various monitors that they've invested time and money in sourcing? If we're very lucky, then we might end up with some clients that will be digging around for content and pulling together as much information as they possibly can. That's always good to see, and they'll pull that information from far and wide and try and stick as much of it onto slides as they possibly can. And the very few will finally then start thinking about the message. What do they want their audience to remember? And bizarrely, it works out that way, that design seems to be the leader, followed by how much content can we actually squeeze into this presentation, and then finally, if we're lucky, there is an element of messaging around that as well. All of those are important, but if you turn the circle on its head, actually the message should be the thing that everybody starts with. So as you're preparing your Sibos presentations now, start considering the message. What do you want your audience, be it the people that stroll past your stand, albeit too briefly, on their way to another seminar, or those people that spend some time with you and your salespeople learning more about your proposition? What message do you want them to remember? Because off the back of that, you can then define the content that's going to be useful in sharing that information. And then finally, the design piece will bring it all together. Design is very important, and there's no getting away from that. However, if all you're designing is content that's not relevant to the audience, it's just going to be a pretty version of an irrelevant presentation. And that's one thing you really need to bear in mind. There are a number of different, over the years, we've seen a number of different sorts of presentations that are used specifically for Sibos. Probably the most engaging that we've been involved with, and we're very proud of the work that we've done with what we like to call interactive pod presentations, is around developing a presentation that's very, very flexible. So what it allows us to do is to share information very, very easily with an audience, and in line with their questions, deep dive into that information as and when that question sort of arises. That's extremely powerful. So if somebody says, I'd like to know a little bit more about your solutions, rather than sit them down and pray that they're not going to drop off as you go towards a 30-slide linear deck, actually you engage the presenter, or rather you engage the audience in a more compelling way by speaking to them, understanding what their interests are, and then almost driving the presentation like you would a website, diving into the area that's of most interest to them. Very, very useful tool, and if you've got a complex solution, or if you're looking to quickly introduce something from an array of solutions and you need to personalize it in a quick way, or if you're looking to react to a prospect's questions and not be hampered by the old linear death by PowerPoint sort of structure that we've seen time and time again, then this is a really effective way of sharing that information. There's nothing that's been added to PowerPoint to allow plugins and what have you. Actually, all of this is native within PowerPoint. It's just PowerPoint sometimes can be pretty good at keeping secrets about how clever it can be. So what we're doing here is hopefully sharing some of those best ideas. The interactivity, I guess, links quite nicely then into the must-have gadget for this year's Sibos, which is the iPad. there's undoubtedly going to be a lot of people walking around with iPads this year, probably very proudly showing off their new technology. We wouldn't be doing our job properly if we didn't sort of offer our view on how it is as a presentation tool, and certainly as an interactive presentation tool. We've got a few within the business, and we like playing with them and seeing what we can do to enhance the presentation process with them. In truth, it's not quite as effective as we had originally hoped. The plan was that this was going to revolutionize the way that people interacted with their audiences, because by its very nature the iPad is an interactive tool. But unfortunately it's hampered slightly by the fact that really the only presentation software of any note on the iPad is Keynote, which is Apple's version of PowerPoint. And Keynote itself is not a bad bit of software. The only problem is that the application that runs on the iPad is quite thin in terms of functionality. So there are some limitations, certainly when it comes to interactivity. But it is a useful tool. It's pretty cool looking, and certainly if you're looking to share your information in a relatively linear way, then it's quite an effective way of doing that. Like I say, it's slightly hampered by the technology that it runs, but I think that's probably just early sort of teething problems and some of the frustrations that we face with Apple sort of tying down exactly what can and will run on their bit of hardware. So that's the iPad covered off, because I know that's always been an area of interest for people. The other really very common form of presentation that we see time and time again for Sibos are what we would call rolling presentations, i.e. these are the presentations that are just on repeat on your stand, and their aim really is to grab attention. And it amazes me how often we'll go to events and we'll see rolling presentations there, chock-a-block with text that nobody's going to have a chance of reading. And if ultimately you think about the point of the rolling presentation, it's about grabbing attention, a bunch of text is unlikely to do that. A couple of other things that we've seen, rolling presentations somehow, and it's very strange, somehow can become quite long. So from start to finish it might take 5 minutes for the entire presentation content to have been shared. Well, seeing that you're looking to grab somebody's attention as they walk by your stand, it's very, very unlikely that they're going to stand there for 5 minutes and watch the entire thing. So try and limit it to about a minute or so, and constantly bear in mind it has to be visual, because by being visual it will be able to grab that attention.
Simon Morden of Eyeful Presentations there, speaking about the different types of presentations used at Sibos. You've now reached the end of video part 1. The second and final part is now available on our website, where Simon introduces the third and final type of presentation used at Sibos. Don't forget, there is also a podcast version of this webinar available on our website. Why not recommend this to friends and colleagues alike who can listen on the move? And if you're attending Sibos and need some presentation advice, why not get in touch? To learn more about how Eyeful can help your business achieve that wow factor, visit www.eyefulpresentations.co.uk or simply call us on 0845 056 8528. That's 0845 056 8528.
This audio was mixed by Eyeful Productions.